All right, so we start. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmayeti Rudrayate Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. So, we saw what the essential problem is. This problem of self-forgetfulness. And if we forget something, then the only way to recover our lost memory is by reminding ourselves of the truth. There is a story told in the tradition that there was this a kingdom, so it's an old story, and an heir was born to the throne, and this newborn prince, there were some soldiers were unhappy with the king, so they kidnapped the little baby and wanted to kill it because they did not like the king. So they took the baby deep inside the forest. And then one of the soldiers felt it be cruel to just kill a baby. So they didn't want to do, I mean, they kidnapped the baby, but they were somehow didn't feel they should kill it. So they said, we'll just leave it into the deep inside the jungle and some wild animal will come and eat it. And so they left. Now it so happened that that baby, of course, was crying. And one hunter couple were passing by. They heard the sound of this little baby crying. They went and found this baby. And they had no idea who this baby was. But it so happened also that they didn't have any children. And they had been praying for a long time. And so they saw that this baby they found in the jungle is really God's gift to them. So they took the baby home and raised the baby as their own son. 20 years passed by. And so this son now is grown up into a young man. He's going and hunting and doing all the tasks that he learned from what he thought were his parents. Now, the king was getting old in the meantime. And these soldiers who had kidnapped that prince, they had had a change of heart. So they went and confessed to the king and told him that this is what we had done, so we apologize, we are sorry. Now, then on the outside chance that maybe that prince may have survived somehow, the king sent out a search party, hoping that they might find that lost prince. And at some time you might have seen something similar storylines in some Bollywood movies. So the baby had a birthmark, and so they found finally this one young man in that forest who was a hunter and found the same birthmark. And they went and interviewed his parents. And the parents, under pressure, then they confessed. No, he's not really our biological child. 20 years ago, we had found him abandoned in the forest. Then they were sure. The birthmark tallied and everything. So then this was that prince who had been missing. So they went and told this prince, come on now, you are the prince. But he had no idea. He all through his life until that point had saw himself as a child of these hunter parents. And then they said, no, you are the prince. And so they took him to the kingdom. He was given all the prince's clothes and eventually became a king himself. So this story is often told in the Vedanta tradition, is somehow a story, our own story. That just as that prince did not know that he was a prince, so he was a prince, he never stopped being a prince, but his ignorance of the fact made him behave like a hunter family person. And when he was suddenly told, "You are the prince," it took a while for him to figure out how it was impossible. A little bit something like that had happened to us. We now think we belong to the human family. We're human beings. And now we read a book like this, read the Gita, the Upanishads. They say, no, 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 no. You are not a human being. You are a divine being. You are infinite, pure, perfect, birthless, and deathless. And then, just like it may have happened to that young man, you think, no, 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 this it kind of sounds nice, but it's very difficult to believe it's true. But then they say, no, 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 keep on thinking. And if we take that message of the Gita and the Upanishad seriously, then gradually that lost memory will come. And then we will know that, yes, I am that infinite one. But right now, we are in a situation where even if this feels good, it's difficult to accept it. So when we think about practicing of Jnana Yoga, we have to think in terms of this story. So if you remember the chain reaction that I mentioned, something that's on page 32, I think, of your book, across page 32. So the weakest link I said is the link that connects desire with karma. And the main instrument in Dhyana Yoga is Viveka. So if we apply that Vivek to thinking about desire, if we look deeply at the desire and then say, a desire is not possible without the desirer, you see, because we can have desires only in the waking state and in the dream state. We cannot have any desire in deep sleep because the one who is desiring is absent. And therefore, the question that we can ask ourselves is that who is the one who is desiring? The body and the mind cannot desire anything. They are just a part of the material world. They are not even conscious. The Atman is complete in itself, doesn't need to desire anything. So this is one of the questions that get asked in Dhyana Yoga. We speak about I want freedom. Who is it that really has to be free? Because the Atma is already free. The body and mind don't even exist. They are mithya. So whose freedom are we looking for? And the answer is, whoever thinks they are bound, they need to be free. So it's the Atman is already free, the body and mind are bound, being material. It's the combination of the Atma with the body and mind that is in trouble. And that combination has to go by giving knowledge to the Atman. So, looking deeply at our desires, we find out that I cannot be truly the one who is desiring. But it's also possible to focus on the desire itself. Sometimes in spiritual life, people demonize desire so much as if desires means bad, which is not true. Because through Vivek, we can look at what, what are the kind of desires my mind has. Because desires can be, we have to ask that will this fulfilling of this desire take me nearer to God or further away from God? Will a fulfilling of this desire make me take me closer to the spiritual ideal or farther away from spiritual ideal? Because there are many desires which are good, which are actually helpful. For instance, now If someone says, I have a desire to do regular exercise, go jogging or walking every day, I think that's a great desire. It'll keep me physically fit. It's good for my body to take regular exercise. So we cannot say, oh, desires are bad, so I'm not going to take exercise. That doesn't make sense. Or if there is a desire that I should wake up early and try to remember God, pray regularly, the desire is good because it takes me closer to God. So do not think that desires themselves are bad. We just have to ask whether that desire will help me fulfill the goal of my life. And if the answer is yes, then I should say yes to the desire. If the answer is no, then I should say no to the desire. So that's the way of applying discrimination or vivek towards the desire. And if we do that and hold on to only those desires, and one question will be, how do I decide which desire is good, which is bad? And one way Swami Vivekananda stressed is anything that makes me strong, either physically, mentally, emotionally, I should say yes. That is always good for me. Anything that makes me weak in either of these ways, that's not good for me. So that's one way of deciding what is good and what is not good. Another way would be in terms of anything that goes to make me more unselfish, that's good for me. Anything that makes me more selfish, that's bad for me. So we need to have our own ways of judging what is good and what is not good. That's one way. The second thing we can do is apply this discrimination or discernment or viveka to karma itself. Again, who is the one who is doing action? Because in order to do any activity, we need the ego. Without the ego, no actions can be done. So there has to be a doer in order to do things. In Sanskrit, the doer is called karta. One who does karma is karta. And so here again, we can ask a similar question. Who is it that is doing things? I'm for instance, a simple thing like this. Now, I'm holding this book and I'm saying, I am reading this book. Now, we can apply that vivek here and say, what does that statement, I'm reading the book, means? What exactly is happening here? And I can say, the book is a part of the material world. Atoms and molecules, material particles have come together and formed this object called the book. I'm holding it in this thing called the hand. A hand is also a material object made of atoms and molecules, material particles. And then I'm reading it with the help of my eyes. My eyes are also part of the body, part of the material objects again. Everything connected with this reading is done with this material objects and material entities dealing with each other. And I'm saying, I am reading the book. Where do I come in? There is this one verse in the Gita which says, Guna guneshu vartante iti matva na sajjate. That it's all gunas, the material entities interacting with each other, and me thinking I'm the one who's doing it. That's the problem. So even the actions, there is another one verse in the Gita which says that things are happening in the world and things will continue to happen in the world. Whether to get attached to them, get identified with them or not, that is up to us. And how much importance we give to something, to that extent we will be affected by them. It's like through your window you are watching two dogs are fighting and neither of the dogs is yours. And so they are fighting and so you can enjoy and watch and fight. You are not affected in either way at all. But if one of those dogs is yours, And if that dog is being beaten by some other dog, then you will immediately run out and try to protect it. So, like that, things are happening in the world. We have very little control over what is happening. Most things are happening through much bigger forces outside of us. Only thing control we have is how I should react to it. Our reactions are under our control. But what is happening in the world, it'll happen. We cannot stop it or we cannot start it. That's the idea. So, keeping that in mind, now very briefly to say, what are the kind of practices I must do? As if I want to practice Jnana Yoga in life, what should I do? And primarily, there are just three practices. They call it Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Shravana means to know the truth. It's like if I if I don't know something, then somebody has to tell me what the correct answer is. And so the first thing to do is to hear the truth. Shravanam means hearing. And that hearing in the ancient days, at a literally hearing, because there were no books, there was nothing. A student had to go to a teacher's home and study under the teacher, and the teacher would give a lesson, the student would hear it. Now, sometimes hearing itself should be enough. You may have heard this story about the kind of a strange kind of a bizarre behavior one person started showing. In one family, there was this young man, and the newspaper came in the morning, and this person just tore that newspaper to pieces. And the family said, "What's wrong with it?" And then they thought maybe there was some news which was very upsetting, and this young man must have been very affected by that, so he tore the pieces of paper. Then they found he started tearing all the magazines they had. When he started tearing dollar bills also, then this is a very serious problem. So they had to just lock him up in a room because there's something seriously wrong. So they called up his PCP, called up the doctor and said, "Can you do something?" And then the doctor ran a series of tests, blood tests, and all the labs and everything. And then gave him strong antibiotics. And still, this problem never stopped. Soon as he would see the paper, he'd start tearing it to pieces. Then they thought, oh, this maybe some, it's not a physiological problem. Maybe he needs some psychiatric treatment. So they took him to therapists and psychiatrists. They put him under hypnotism. They gave him all psychic drugs and so on. Nothing worked. He kept on tearing paper. Then they tried all alternative medicine. They called Ayurveda and homeopathy and everything. Nothing worked. He kept on tearing paper. So finally, they spent hundreds and thousands of dollars to bring. None of those treatments worked. And they said, this is a strange kind of an illness. Finally, months had passed. They had to lock him up in a room with no paper inside. Then one of the family friends visited, and he said, "One young doctor had recently started practicing. He seems to be like a good doctor. Why don't you show this patient to him?" Then the family said, "We have gone to all international specialists. They could not do anything. What will this young doctor do?" But the friend said, "Try, give it a try and see." So these people didn't have much hope, but they took this patient to that young doctor's office. And that doctor listened to what the problem was, and then he told them, "You all remain seated. I'll just have a chat with this patient." So in that small little office, they just walked from one wall to the other, just across. And this friendly doctor was very friendly. He put his arm around the patient, and then they were chatting. And then the doctor whispered something in his ear. And then he comes and tells the family, "Leke jao, abhi theek ho gaya hai. He's become all right now. You can take him with you." The family thought, "Oh, now people have started making fun. no tests, no medication, no prescription. And he's saying, all right. So they took him home. And then, to their great surprise, they found he was stopped tearing paper. He's not tearing paper anymore. I said, oh. And they thought, let's wait 1 or 2 days, maybe it will come back again. He completely stopped doing it. They were so grateful, so happy, and but like it's almost like a miracle. So then next day the family goes to that doctor and thanks him that you saved us a lot this thing trouble. But how did you do it? He said first of all they asked for his fees, some moderate fees, not even he didn't charge them very high. And then they said, but we have one question. What magic did you do? How did you make him all right? And the young doctor said, nothing. He said, I just told him, stop tearing paper. So what had happened was, the problem was he was tearing paper. Nobody had told him, don't do it. They were running tests on him. They were giving him capsules to take, shots to take. Nobody told him, don't do it. So the moral of this story is that first, whenever we think there is a problem, we have to ask what the problem is and how that problem can be solved. Because if the problem is someone is tearing a paper, the first thing to do is tell him, don't do it. Nobody had said that to that person. So sometimes they say, pranayama, people will kind of close one nostril and leave all the way. So one way of doing pranayama is this way. Another way of doing pranayama is to put your hand around your head this way. And of course, it's complicated, it's difficult. Most of us will not be able to do it. Whenever, and all of us have problems in life. So whenever we have problems, we have to see what the problem actually is and which is the direct, simple way of solving the problem. Now, the main problem in our case is that even if there is a simple solution available, we have become complicated beings ourselves. And because our minds are complicated, the simple solution never comes to us. We always think of more complicated solutions. And so, if it is true that I am this divine being, I am this infinite reality, if I am Brahman, then the first thing is someone should tell me what I am. So first thing is Shravanam, hearing the truth. Now nowadays, of course, because books are available, even if I read about it somewhere, that's fine. That's the first step, hearing. Now, there are three kinds of students in life, both secular life and spiritual life also. In Sanskrit, they call it Uttam Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, and Kanishta Adhikari. The top level of students will always get A plus, the gold standard. That few students will be like that. And then there are these mediocre students, the middle, those who are in the middle, moderate, smart, intelligent, but never on the top, never at the bottom also, somewhere in the middle. And then there are other students who are kind of at the lower level of the category. So what they say is, in Vedanta, when a student goes to the teacher wanting to know the truth, the teacher says, Tattvamasi, you are that infinite being, you are Brahman. Now, if that student is of the highest category, now, first of all, how do we know who is highest and who is lowest? To some extent, those of us who are devotees of Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother and Swamiji, we can see that from looking at their lives. Because so many people went to Sri Ramakrishna, but what he felt when he saw Narendranath and how he felt when other people went, we know there is a difference. Looking at Narendra, he was soul. How could such a pure soul person be even present in this material city like Calcutta? That's what he thought. So he could see that purity, that clarity in someone like this young Vivekananda. And so we know that he belonged to that highest level of students. So similarly, when that category of students goes to a teacher and the teacher says, Tattvamasi, you are this infinite being, that student immediately recognizes, Aham Brahmasmi, I am the infinite one. Because it's simple. It's like, I didn't know something, someone told me, now I know it. Problem solved. So if I belong to that highest category of students, simply hearing about the truth or reading about it, the problem is solved. Now, clearly, we don't belong to that level because we, week after week, month after month, we have been reading these books over and over again, listening to it. Intellectually, we appreciate it, we like it, it makes sense, but it doesn't change our daily life. More or less, life is going on. So, our life is going on in one way, and our spiritual thing is kind of very intellectually satisfying in many ways. So life has not changed. So Shravana, the first step is done, and the reason for that is there is a one big obstacle. And in Sanskrit, they call it asambhavana. Asambhavana means a doubting mind. Gita, Krishna said, samshayatma vinashyati. Yes, doubts are natural. And that's what education means. That doubts and questions should be asked. But if I hold my doubts and don't make any efforts to remove those doubts, then I cannot make any progress. And so asambhavana is the first. So when the teacher says, you are Brahman, you are the infinite being, Tattvamasi, then the student says, no, it doesn't make sense. I'm still this ordinary human being. I was born a few years earlier, and then I'm going to die after some time. How can I be the infinite one? I don't feel I'm the birthless and deathless. It's impossible. It doesn't make sense. So these doubts, to remove these doubts, I have to do mananam. I have to reflect on it. That's the second step. So those who are these moderate students, those who are in the middle, after doing this reflection, the doubts completely go away from their mind. They become enlightened. They become illumined. They become Jivan Muktas. Their problem is solved. Now, in some cases, even after doing that reflection, still they may not become enlightened because the doubts have gone, but still, I still keep on feeling I'm a human being. So, the second obstacle is called Viparita Bhavana. Viparita Bhavana means intellectually it all makes complete sense. I have no more doubt that the scripture is telling me the truth. But yet, my own experience of myself is very different from what the books are saying. Now, to counteract this Viparita Bhavana, this contrary experience, opposite experience, I need to then do meditation. And that in Sanskrit they call it Nididhyasana. So Nididhyasana simply means going deep down inside and trying to find out who is this I, this sense of I keep on feeling. What is this I? Because without deep reflection, this I is a human I, a human being. But let me look at this I a little bit more closely, little bit more deeply, and to see whether I see anything different. So this is the basic practice. Now, how do we strengthen this practice? And one way of doing that is, first of all, following the path of dharma. I mentioned yesterday, I think, dharmo rakshati rakshitaha, that if I protect dharma, dharma will protect me. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that truthfulness is the highest tapasya for this age. So I then need to, the reason these doubts keep on coming in the mind, the reason I'm not able to see things clearly is because my mind hasn't become clear yet. So the mind can sometimes be seen as a windshield. If you're driving, and if you're driving, of course, the windshield must be clear. Because if that becomes cloudy, then I won't be able to see what's ahead. And if I keep on driving, then there's a danger that I may not be able to see the road correctly. There will be accidents. I might hurt myself. Now, the mind is the windshield of this. If you see the body as a kind of a car, every time we are born, we are presented with a new body car. Because this is essentially, we are living in the body throughout our life. And the mind is the windshield. Now, that windshield needs to be clear. And that clarity of the windshield comes through leading an honest life, a life of truthfulness. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that in Kali Yuga, the greatest austerity is being truthful, being honest. And so that is the first practice. Because the more clarity we get, Swami Vivekananda often used to quote that passage from the New Testament, the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So what does purity mean? It primarily the clarity of the mind. When the heart becomes pure, the mind becomes clear. When the mind becomes clear, I'm able to see things clearly. I know which road, when I should take a right turn, when I should take a left turn. If there is a pothole, how I must avoid it. Otherwise, there's going to be, because the windshield is not clear, we have all these kind of minor and major accidents in life. It's why, because the car of our life has all these, it's not a smooth ride. And so that is the first thing to do. Uh, some of our some of our senior swamis, I've heard them say that even before we even if we want to lead a spiritual life, first we must become good human beings. Divine being will come later on. At least first be good human beings. There has to be a distinction between morality and spirituality. Sometimes people oversimplify things and they say, oh, all this religion and all these technicalities, just be good, do good, be happy, and that's enough. No, I think that it's not enough. So the distinction between morality and spirituality is being ethical means being good, honest, kind, helpful. Now, it's possible to be all of that and yet not be religious at all. So sometimes the question is asked, how to be, how to get strength in life? Because all of these things requires a lot of strength. And so the first source of strength in life is a moral life. People may not believe in religion, may not even believe in God. But if they believe, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be truthful, I'm going to be good, such people develop a great inner strength. It's not the strength of a wrestler, but it's a great inner strength. And they are able to face the ups and downs of life in a much mature way. And we don't even need religion for that. So that is one source of strength, living according to dharma. A second source of strength is for those who believe in God, who are bhaktas, who like to think of themselves as devotees. About that, I have one comment, and that is sometimes people think, oh, Advaita means I have to do something to realize the non duality or Advaita. But Dvaita, by default, we are all Dvaitins. No, actually, the reality is most of us are not even dualists. Because what does a dualist say? A dualist believes in God. A dualist may think God is somewhere above. But God is. we have to ask ourselves, how often as we go through our day do we remember God is? How often do we even remember God at all? Because usually, when it's some festival or when we go to a temple, when we go to this thing, then a little bit of awareness of the presence of the divine comes. Otherwise, in our day to day activity, we find our life is going just fine without bringing God into the picture. In fact, sometimes God becomes a problem. Because it's like, oh, I want to just have fun and enjoy, and I think of God. Now I can't do this, I can't do that. So sometimes God is actually a problem. But if I want to be a dualist, then if I truly believe God exists, then I will never forget that truth. Even if I think God is sitting above the clouds. So let us not think that to be a dualist is like automatically we are dualists. We are not automatically dualists. So those who believe in God, that faith in God can give a lot of strength. There are many cases that I'm sure you have heard, I have definitely heard many, who themselves were maybe not physically strong, not able to deal with it, but those who believed, yes, Thakur is there, Mother is there, I'm not afraid of any challenge. Through Mother's grace, through Thakur's grace, through Swamiji's grace, I will be able to overcome it. So when one has that kind of faith, one acquires a great inner strength. So this total surrender and the awareness that God is always present, that I am never alone. There is this one story, and I think it's something that can be very, very helpful. And it is this. I heard this story from one of our Swamis who was in our Haridwar ashrama in the 1950s. So he went to this Kedar Badri, this Char Dham Yatra. And of course, nowadays, for many of these, you can either take a car or a bus, and it pretty much goes everywhere. The roads are broadened, things have become much easier. But even until 20 or 30 years ago, a lot of the stretch, especially the end part of this Char Dham Yatra, people had to walk, people had to go trekking. And so this Swami was saying that on the way to this Kedarnath temple, especially beyond Gauri Kund, for those of you who have gone there, it's almost 15, 20 kilometers. You have to walk in that hilly terrain. And so people who are not, all are not like professional trekkers. So, but still, it's devotion that takes them there. It's very difficult. After every some distance, people wait to kind of catch their breath and slowly, slowly continue. Um, so this Swamiji found there's this one elderly woman. She was almost like a grandmother age with a one teenage boy. She was holding on to his shoulder, and another, she had a stick. She was slowly walking, very much advanced in age, and going. So this Swami, who was also, he was young that time, so he saw this very elderly woman putting her uh, hand on the shoulders of this teenage boy and slowly going up that hill to Kedar temple. When they came close, the Swamiji saw that she was blind in both the eyes. And of course, that was one of the reasons, besides her age, that she had to go very slowly. And he was curious. So when they stopped on the way to catch their breath, so this Swami asked her. He said, माता जी आप तो जा रहे हैं दर्शन करने के लिए, परंतु वहां जाने के बाद तो आप तो नहीं देख सकेंगे. So he said, you are taking all this trouble to go, but what is it that gives you that motivation to go? Because even after going there, you won't be able to see. And then he said that with such faith, that grandmother replied, she said, मैं तो नहीं देख सकूंगी, किंतु बाबा केदारनाथ तो मुझे देखेंगे. And he said it was something obvious, but something many of us don't think. He said, when I heard that statement made with such conviction, such faith. He said, I felt my pilgrimage is already successful. Even if I don't go up to the temple, I have already got the message from Baba Kedar. So, do we remember that? When we go to a mandir, when we go to a temple, and when we say, darshan karne ke liye ja rahe hain, we often think that we are the ones who are seeing the divine. But do we remember that when I bow down before the altar, God also is seeing me that time? Where every time we come into this space, every time we bow down before the altar here, what are we really seeing? Are we seeing pictures, photographs of Thakur, Mother, and Swamiji? Or are we seeing, no, they are. It's a living presence of Mother and Thakur and Swamiji. If I remember that, then when I come and bow down, I will not think that I'm the one who is seeing them, but they are the ones who are seeing me as well. The benefit of devotion, the benefit we get by keeping this in mind is immense. And if every time we go to Mandir and say, oh, how beautiful image it is, and we appreciate the architecture and stuff like that, then there is not much difference between us and an atheist. So to think that I'm a devotee, it's a very great responsibility that I have to be aware of the presence of God in my life. And it's not just only when you go to a temple. Many of us have a little family shrine. Somewhere in our home, we have got our own little shrine. Even there, it's not simply pictures or photographs. God is present in a special way. Somebody asked Holy Mother once that, oh, Mother, is God really, and they were asking specifically about Sri Ramakrishna, is Thakur really present in the photo, or we are just kind of out of faith standing before a picture and praying? And then Holy Mother said, if you stand before Thakur's image or a picture and pray with sincerity in your heart, he manifests in a special way in that picture. It's not just of any ordinary photograph. There is a real presence there. So even in our family shrine, every time you go and spend some time there, and you don't think in terms of just a photograph or a small murti, think they are really present, you will feel the atmosphere in that room will completely change. If you go, the more you pray and the more you meditate in that room, the more you are benefited, and the more the whole place will become vibrant with divine presence. So we sometimes make the mistake of thinking, oh, that is all bhakti stuff. Now we are like jnana. That distinction has to go. Even for a jnani, that even when they go and bow down before a presence, they have to follow all this. All this, when we intellectualize the whole thing, we make too much distinction between devotion and knowledge. But in real practice, there is no difference. Sri Ramakrishna could remain in Nirvikalp Samadhi for 6 months. And yet, when he went to the Divine Mother's temple, he could also clap and sing and dance. He had no conflict between bhakti and jnana. And so this artificial division has to go. So those who are able to take care of this, so Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan, that's the way to go forward. Now, one way that we can practice for those who are interested in Dhyana Yoga is to remind ourselves of these high, because the problem is we keep on forgetting. And if we keep on forgetting, the solution only is I should find ways to keep on reminding myself of the truth again and again and again. And so one way we can do that is immediately after waking up in the morning, and many people have found this helpful, as soon as you wake up, You may be still lying in your bed, but the first thought that the mind should think will be something related to God. If you already have a mantra received from a guru, then just repeat the mantra mentally. So the very first thought in the mind after waking up should be repeating the mantra. And if by your bedside, if you have a picture or a symbol that reminds you of that highest reality, try to look at it. As soon as your lights are switched on, the first thing the eye should see should be something that reminds you of God. And then, of course, you wake up, you do your wash up and do a shower or whatever you do to get ready. Then it's also helpful early in the morning. Many people then probably do their japa or meditation. But it's also helpful to, especially in the path of Jnana Yoga, or whichever path you follow, to recite some hymns or chant something which will again orient the mind in that direction. There is set of verses called Pratasmarana Stotram, verses that need to be chanted in the morning. And in this book, you will find some references given and some things we can do of immediately after waking up in the morning. These are the kind of things we can recite. Because the more, even if we know what it is, reciting it is a way of reminding ourselves of that reality. When you it's almost like injecting some helpful, positive thoughts early in the mind, and there's a chance that those thoughts will stick around for a while and help guide me as I become busy with my other chores in my daily life. Then, of course, you do your morning meditation, prayer, and then whatever tasks you need to attend to in life. But whatever task we do, make sure that they are according to dharma. Then throughout the day, we can find opportunities to think of God in some way or the other, even while we are busy doing other things in life. There is a way. The one way is to do everything. And that's where some of the insights we find in Karma Yoga can be helpful. How to keep on carrying out our duties and responsibilities and yet keep the mind on God. It's possible to do that. And then similarly, just as we did in the morning, at night, before you switch off the light, the last thing the eye should see is something that reminds me of God. And you just close your eyes until sleep comes. We can mentally think of God in some ways. Think of the different Leela. If you meditate on Ramakrishna, think about his life or Holy Mother. Or repeat your mantra silently and glide into sleep. So, ending the day thinking of God, beginning the day thinking of God, and trying to find ways to think of God during the day as well. If we can do this with faith, with regularity, with consistency, you will find something amazing. Because a lot of times, we might have some measure of control of the things that we can do or think during when we are awake. We don't have any control when we are asleep because we don't control our dreams. It's like if you have a streaming plan, at least you can choose what movie you want to stream and what you want to see. But if you are told you can just switch on or off, what you are going to see, you have no control. But dreams are like that. Dreams are actually just a free movie. And in a way, it's like a free streaming done by nature, except that we don't have any control. So sometimes it's enjoyable, sometimes it's not enjoyable. But if I'm able to think of God morning and night, and as many times as possible in the course of the day, gradually you'll find this momentum somehow persists when we are asleep also. You will begin to find that the dreams that you get, there'll be more divine content in it. There'll be somehow God will make her presence felt even in dream. That's why they say yogis have a control over dreams. Yogis are able to then decide themselves what kind of dreams they want to have. Right now, we don't have that control. But if we have control during our waking hours, then that control will gradually come during our sleeping hours as well. So, all of these little things we can try. Then the practice of hearing, reflection, and meditation, those practices will become stronger and stronger and stronger. And a time will come when the right now, for us to think that I'm a human being, we don't need to, it's not a very intellectual process. That's our experience. We don't need to read, oh, what kind of a being I am. I don't need a book to tell me I'm a human being. So, this conviction that I have I'm a human being, when I become enlightened, as effortlessly, I will know that I'm a divine being, that I am infinite. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to repeat any mantra. I don't have to do anything. That's who I am. That's how we will experience. Until that stage comes, we have to keep on practicing until it becomes effortless. So if I want to think of myself as the Atman, then I have to keep on thinking of it as often as I can. There is a saying, there is one great Vedanta teacher and a scholar in the, I think probably 16th or 17th century. His name was Appaya Dikshitar. And then in one of his compositions, he says, Asuktehe amrutehe kalam nayet Vedanta chintaya. Spend all your time thinking about these highest divine truths. Asuktehe, throughout the day until you fall asleep. Amrutehe, throughout your life until you die. Don't let go of this. Only people who are able to do this with perseverance, they succeed. So this is the path for tough people, for courageous people. It's not for namby-pamby people, as they say. Because sometimes people might think, oh, life outside is so challenging, lot of problems. Let me go to spirituality. If I can't face the problems in outside life, then I won't be able to face problems in spiritual life. These are much subtler problems, much more tougher problems. We have to be strong. I remember years ago when I was in Chennai, um, so this one person came to our center there, and they met our manager Swamiji, and I was a much younger Swami then, and so he said, I've come to inquire about my nephew. I want my nephew to join this mutt as a Swami. And this was very unusual because usually those who want to join will come on their own. They don't have their uncles coming and recommending their name. And so Swami said, but where is your nephew and why do you want your nephew to join? So then this uncle says, oh, he tried to get in medical school, he didn't get admission, and he tried in engineering, he is not able to do anything. So finally he said, go and join the mutt. And of course, the Swami gave him a piece of his mind. He said, you think that those who have failed at everything then can come and then last resort come as a... So spiritual life is a great challenge. It's not for people who are afraid to face challenges. It's not a mode of escape. It's actually, on the contrary, people who are not afraid of deeper challenges. Because if we find that the challenges in the world are tough, challenges in the inner world are even 100 times more tough. Conquering one's own mind is not easy. It's not impossible, but it's not easy. So we have to be prepared for great challenges. But one who can do this, one who is not afraid, one who says, I am going to march ahead, to such a person, in a most unexpected way, help comes. In a most unexpected manner, in most unexpected ways of it, help comes. And because we don't know how and when and how this happens, we just call it grace. So grace is always present. Uh, Now, I'll just conclude with um, something that has kind of become outdated now. But about 20 years ago, it was a big thing when this Harry Potter book started coming. Any of you have read about it or interested in it? So there's this one character in that story. And he was the headmaster of that school, you know, Dumbledore in that book. He makes one statement, and I was very fascinated by that. He says, so the school, that wizard school that they went was called Hogwarts. So he said, whoever asks for help at the Hogwarts will always get it. Now the context is very different there. But that's the kind of a faith a bhakta should have, that God is always present. I may not have seen God yet, but God is seeing me all the time. Just like that faith of that old woman who said, I cannot see Baba Kedar, but Kedar will see me. So even when we say that I haven't had God's vision yet, God is seeing me. And if God is seeing me, God is my own father, my own mother. Just like a mother, a father will protect their baby, God protection I always have. So to such people who march ahead with that faith, a hand will come and say, hold my hand. And because we don't know how that happens, we call it kripa. So there is this one Advaita text called Avadhuta Gita, very non-dualistic. In the very first verse, that it says, Ishvara anugrahadeva pumsam advaita vasana. Logically, it's very difficult to understand. What it says is, it's only through the God of grace, even desire for Advaita comes through God's grace. And so it is a mystery. We try to understand it, we try to apply our logic, reasoning in many different ways. We try to get guidance from the scriptures, but ultimately, it is still a mystery. But from the experience of those who have gone before us, we know that if we are earnest, if we are sincere, somehow God's help comes. So it is that faith that we have to march on. And we will see, no matter how difficult, and one final thought also. Sometimes we might think, I'm just a beginner. It's going to take a long time. God knows, if not in this birth, maybe next birth, I'm going to take many years. This thinking is a problem. Faith in God means that if God wants, I can be enlightened in the next 5 minutes. I may have done very little japa, little meditation. But if I pray, if I'm earnest, I can be enlightened. So never give up hope, because every time we sit for meditation, sit with the hope that I'll be enlightened today. Because you see, what happens is, because we have so many things to attend to, we have got our own schedule. This is my time for prayer, and then after this and this. So when we sit for meditation, we sometimes think, I'm going to meditate now for another 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then after that, I've got to do this, I've got to call these people, I've got to do this shopping. What that kind of thinking shows, that now my 10 or 15 minutes of meditation, I don't expect anything big to happen that time. Because if I truly believe God's grace can come anytime, then maybe in the next 5 minutes, I will be a Jivan Mukta. I don't have to go shopping. I don't have to do anything. So that hope, and I'm not joking, I'm serious. So Every time we sit, Thakur gives the example of a person who goes fishing, that a person who is truly fishing with the mind focused on it has to be there that any moment a fish will come. You can't be like, put this thing and then go somewhere for a walk and say, oh, kuch nahi milne wala aaj. Then nothing will happen. So, hope. They say, Asha hi paramam dukkham, nairashyam paramam sukham. Living with expectations is profound misery. Living without expectation is a profound joy. But we need to understand what this means. Living with expectations in the world, expecting things from other people, is always going to bring sorrow. Because we don't have control over other people. I expect that this person should do this for me, and that person doesn't do it, and I become miserable. So we can be happy even before we have had God realization. We can be happy right now, this moment. A simple formula: if I can touch my heart and then say, I don't expect anything from anyone in the world. I'll keep on doing what is right. I'll keep on doing what is good, but I don't expect anything from anyone. We can be happy right now. The mistake we make is we think if I don't expect it, I will not get it, which is not true. I'm going to get what I'm going to get, and I'm not going to get what I'm not going to get. Whether I expect it or not doesn't change the reality. It's like now, I heard India is now going to play in this cricket World Cup. It's called World Series. What is it? World Cup final, right? Now, obviously, there are many Indians who are waiting eagerly for the match, and they expect, uh, I'm expecting that my country will win. And whichever is the other team, their country, their people are also expecting their country will win. Your expectation makes no difference. On that particular time, whichever team plays well, they are going to win. And we are sitting at home with our heart pumping fast, like my team is winning or not. It's just giving needless trouble to your heart, because those fellows don't even know you exist. So your expectation makes no difference at all. So if I can live without expectation, I can be happy with that faith that whatever my karma is going to bring me is going to bring me. If it is due, it will come. If it is not due, even if I manipulate and change heaven and earth, nothing is going to change. But, and this is the important but God's presence in my life, I should always be expecting. Don't become hopeless there. So, as a bhakta, as a spiritual seeker, don't expect anything from anyone in the world, but always expect God's grace will come. That is an important part of this thing. So, we come to the end. Clearly, I have not dealt with every little point in this book, but that's the advantage that now it's already available in a book form. So if you get a chance to read it, do read it carefully. And if you remember some of the things we had a chance to talk about, some greater clarity may come. So I think we have just a few minutes for any thoughts or comments or questions you have, and then we will conclude for the day. If you can use that microphone there, so that, because there are some people listening online as well. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The question is expectations. Don't expect anything from anybody. And then the second thought that comes to my mind, a pure mind is a mind who thinks about good thoughts. To me, they are interrelated, one way or the other.
Do we?
To me, they are interrelated. Don't expect anything.
Yeah.
Have the best thoughts in your mind, because that will lead to purification. This is how you think. How do you reconcile the two, and how do you get there?
Well, we go there through practice. That's what practice is. So you now know what to do. So every time there is an expectation, remind yourself, no, expectation will bring me sorrow. So I shouldn't do it. So the past habits of the mind will make us do things we shouldn't do. So every time we have to be alert so that we do what needs to be done. And gradually, old habits can be removed only through cultivating new habits. So it's not that all of our habits are bad. So some of the good habits we have, we should keep. So a good understanding of what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, is important. So if I'm able to know what my strength is, what my weakness is, then it becomes easy. I need to preserve my strength and eliminate my weakness one by one. That's essentially it.
Swamiji, my understanding from his question is, it's easy for you to say to have good habits, but implied question in that, I see, where is the proof of guarantee? What made you say that? What is the proof? That is what he's asking.
Well, the proof is this is what the books say, this is what the experience of people who have come before us says. We are not the first people trying to be spiritual. Generations of people, centuries people have done this, and they have seen the results of it. That is the proof. It's like we are doing some experiment. We are not the first people to be doing it. That experiment has been done in hundreds of labs for hundreds of years, and they have attained to that result. Yeah. Yeah.
Probably many of us know that probably many of us know, and especially those who are disciples of Ramakrishna Mission, connected with Ramakrishna Mountain Mission, that the body and the mind and the other gross and the subtle things are not really me. I am somebody else when I say I. Now, this is easy to understand, and probably we all know. But from that stage, going to realization stage is enormous, difficult road, much difficult than going to, say, Kedarnath or Badrinath, or going up the hills about 18,000 feet high, where the oxygen is very rare. So that is one question. The other question is,
Acharnan, where is the question?
Huh?
You're just saying there is no question there. You said it's tough. It's not a question.
there is another sloka in chapter 7, I think the third verse, Gita. It says, Manusheshu Shahasreshu. And Gita is probably written around 200 BC, or maybe it may vary a lot even before that. Okay, it says Manusheshu Shahasreshu. Very few people out of 1,000 at that time, where 1,000 people were a lot. Today's age, it will be about maybe million people. Out of million people, only very handful of people will have any attraction towards the God, about thinking of the God. Out of the people who think about the God, only very few percentage will be able to achieve me. But thinking about all these all we know. I mean, this is all there. And every sloka of 700 slokas of Gita coming directly from, almost 700 of them coming directly from the God's mouth. So there is no question of any doubt. The question is, to achieve that, the main thing, the first thing that is required is the faith. Everybody has to have some faith. Without faith, if you do not believe in God, I think it is kind of very difficult. The atheist or those people, the first thing that you require, you have to believe this, there are some holy people who have attained and showed in their lifetime. Is it not?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Sri Thakur.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Pranam Swamiji. One other Swamiji, not from the Ramakrishna order, from other organization, said that no matter how much we try, it is not because of your effort that you might get enlightened. It's all because of the God grace. You're trying only to be ready to receive that grace. Can you comment on this, Swamiji?
No, it's just something that we read in many books as well, that our efforts are never going to be enough. And we have to do the best we can. And that's what I mentioned about grace, that if we put our best efforts, then whether or not they are enough, ultimately God's grace will come. Because enlightenment is not the result of our efforts. Because there is one principle in the Vedas which says, Yat kritakam tad anityam. If it is an effect of something, then that effect is dependent on the cause. And so if the cause is withdrawn, the effect won't occur. So enlightenment is not the effect of anything. It's in fact beyond the cause and effect relationship. And therefore none of us can say, oh, my so much sadhana, this has come. It's never going to be that way. But I have to do the best I can. In my existing situation, I have to put like on fire on all cylinders, as whatever the capacity of that cylinder may be. I have to try my best. And then, because we don't know how it happens, we say, is God's grace then that makes it possible. So it's always, the ultimate step will always be a kind of mystery. Yeah. All right, so we will stop here. And then, of course, tomorrow morning we probably might have a chance to summarize some of these ideas that we saw today and saw. I think the topic tomorrow is yoga as a spiritual discipline, in which some of these ideas will come, but then we can also bring together the essential ideas for our own spiritual progress. So I would encourage those of you, not simply read the book knowing the knower, but go to the original source. Swami Vivekananda Jnana Yoga, lectures on Jnana Yoga, they are filled with power, coming as they did from an enlightened being. Swami Vivekananda's words have the power to change our life. So if you get a chance, read, even if you have read it before, please try to read Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. Don't read too much at a time. Just read a paragraph or two, try to reflect on it, see whether it makes any sense. And then if you have any doubts or questions as a result, then if you have a copy of this book, you can read it. So reading it together with Swamiji's Jnana Yoga will bring greater benefit. So I'll conclude now with the prayer. Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhu.